Hello. So this is a pretty spontaneous vlog. Hi. It's been a while. My name is Lee Bowden, blogger of lovinglifewithlee.com. And gosh, I've just been going through a lot. So since my last video, kind of climactic point happened. I woke up. And I mean that in the most crazy, impactful way. Spiritually woke up as soon as I started doing any kind of self-care and like doing the things that I really enjoyed doing and listening to myself and meditating for the first time in my life. I just got to a point where I really looked back and was like, you know what? Everything happened exactly the way that it should. And I know that I want some further clarity, but I forgive myself. I'm okay. I'm a good person now. I wasn't always a good person, but I am now. And do I have the life that I want? No. But do I want to get to a point where I am in the life and the environment that I want to be in? Yeah, I do. So I've been asking really big questions, and I've really learned a lot about myself. I have a really philosophical mind. I think very theoretically. I'm a really big picture thinker. And I just really been asking the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What are my origins? And what's my fucking purpose? Like, what am I supposed to do in this life? And what's all this about? So my research went back into the kind of research that I have always really liked to do, but have not allowed myself any time to do more recently. And that's made me realize, well, what else am I like not doing that I, enjoy doing, and why am I not doing them? I really started to realize, well, for someone who says that they don't care what other people think, I sure do take a lot of time doing what other people want to do instead of what I'm doing. I spend a lot of time researching other people's things that they should be researching, that they don't, that I think that they should, instead of researching the things that I should be researching. And, also it plays into, the realization that just doing it wrong. That's all there is to it. And that's not always, sorry, I was trying to see what time it is. It's not always the easiest thing to do. Look at yourself and like what you see, but also look at yourself and not like what you see. So I really started on a healing journey. I've read about this in my blog. My 12 steps that I took for self-diagnosis, and that's a post I'll probably edit, later on as I move. But I wanted to just at least get it out there, and what I'm doing for myself. And I really started to look at. Well, I'll back up a little bit. So I woke up, and 3 days later, I started feeling really, really intense. Like I was doing self-care stuff, like started to do meditations and energy exercises and stuff. But 3 days after I had this kind of breakdown moment of just like realizing I really do like myself and I love myself, regardless of all the stuff that I've done. Like I like who I am, and I want to be more of who I am. After kind of forgave myself, 3 days later exactly, I really, really like woke up. My brain and my heart and just my chakras went ballistic. And since then I felt really, really intense, just being alive, like just being alive. And things just started happening really, really quick. I started diving and doing my self-care. I started working with energy. I started doing my research, and again, my brain, it was just like alive. Like I felt alive again. And So I started exploring. I started exploring my mind. I started exploring my heart. I started doing heart chakras and waking those chakras up and peeling off those seals and those caps over all of my energy, and realizing, the ones that were taking over and giving too much energy versus not too much energy. I'm living with my mom. So I come to, I've kind of known that we have some interests in common when it comes to mind and health and body. Not so much mind, but like the body, mind, and physical health. And so she is into energy healing, like with the meridian. So she gave me, I raided her bookshelf, and I found tons of things that I've been sucked into. A lot of it has to do with energy healing and emotional release and things like that. So I went to her, we worked together, and I had my first, I was able to release the trapped emotional energy in the top of my neck right here with the help of some essential oils, a little bit of a script, and a real strong desire within myself to like release it and do it right. And that it worked. Again, like a couple hours later, I was feeling a lot better. I was like calling up Vicky, like, whoa, you gotta, like, this worked. This natural alternative medicine and therapy is real. And so this kind of led me into some of the more spiritual areas, because I was really feeling awake and connected and alive again. Just really able to like listen to the world and to the universe, and just like started hearing, like literally hearing in my mind, and hearing out of the universe, like the truth of things, like realizing things that I shouldn't necessarily know or understand at all. I was beginning to look at and know and understand. So I'm gonna be honest, I've done some psychedelics, and it's very strange to feel like you're high when you're sober. And that happens to me now a lot. Whenever I just kind of get in this state of awareness around me and realize just the matrix of everything. Seeing things different, and I'm feeling more connected to the things around me. And for me, I connect with people really well. But for me to like look over and connect to like a tree, or like make a relationship with a branch, is not necessarily like me on a regular basis. Like if I'm high, like doing psychedelic mushrooms or LSD, like sure, that's a very natural process on those to feel connected. That's a thing. But I just, to be so awake and alive to all this going on. Now, granted, like there's some emotional, mental stuff that I've been dealing with along this process too. It's been a weird kind of listening and this back and forth language. So if I have a question about myself or about the world, and I really give it over and ask myself, ask the world, ask just really solidly, like be very specific about a certain question, like who am I and where am I from? Things start to kind of happen in a strange order, whether it be, at least for me, I would get like this idea that I just know is not my idea. And like it's not like my imagination or my logical brain. Like it's not from the right or the left part of my brain. It was from like the top, and this like knowing that it just wasn't my idea. So I followed that trail, and along the trail, eventually it might even take a couple of days, but I was starting to get the answers. That's the crazy part. And so so I started to get a little more bold and asking a little bit more specific questions about specific things. And I really started to, through this process of like little hints, messages, and I started to realize my relationship with certain birds, I was about to say, as a hummingbird just like hangs out next to me. So yeah, I started to really, so one of the questions was, for example, has to do with birds. One of my earliest meditations had to do with me seeing myself with wings. So, and remembering a name that I was given, Lilith. And this name I was given, Lilith, comes from a high school part of my life. I was given a rave name, like a nickname. And granted, I'm one of those, I like to give names. I'm not good at naming things in general, but I do like to have particular nicknames with people. It's just something I do, a relationship that we make. And I've done this for so many people in my life. It's just a thing, but I don't particularly get nicknames back. like, I nickname myself, again, I call myself Lee, but my real name is Kayleen. My family and my California friends and stuff growing up, like, my real name, my birth name is Kayleen. But I nicknamed myself Lee when I moved here, when I moved back, I should say, when I was 13. So I'm a nicknamer, but I don't really get nicknames. I've only been given one nickname, and that was Lilith. So these two things in my first meditation that I ever really did, and asking. So I started to wonder, like, I've also never identified myself with any kind of animal totem, like, or spirit animal. Like, it's always bugged me. People around me, they're like, oh, I'm an owl. Oh, like, BOWDENS he's a squirrel. And he does have a certain relationship with squirrels. And it, like, makes sense. But I'm still, like, almost, I don't know, like, jealous, I guess. It seems silly, but I don't know, my animal. Anyways, so all of this research started happening, and this has been a weeks over weeks process of just doing research about Lilith's backstory, just gathering any opinion about Lilith, and there's a lot out there about Lilith's mythology, demonology, Christianology, bibliography, well, not quite Scientology, but there are she is being actually even mentioned in, like, the sciences as an example, and that's starting to happen more too. But, like, and then astrology, and I can't believe I missed this one, because I'm really into astrology. I've put a lot of effort in using astrology in my life, and with people. Like, I look up my astrological, like, birth database, and I've got over, like, somewhere between 50 and 100 people that I've looked up with that database. So I'm pretty practiced at looking at charts and stuff. So anyways, these are the two things. And so I started asking, basically, what's my spirit animal? I started asking myself in meditations. I started asking in prayer. I started asking the world, like, show me. I started to be really frustrated because I was looking to birds, and I was watching them, and I was starting to kind of make relationships with identifying people and birds and, like, things, and listening and trying to become aware of what exactly it is. When it comes to animal totems and Native American animal spiritual lessons, they're pretty specific. Like, there's a difference between a crow and a raven. And there's a difference between a seagull and an owl. Like, bird, like, wings is not enough. Well, it comes back to the nicknames. I am known to be a bit of a dragon when I get excited, angry, like, frustrated, or on alcohol, or, like, just in general, when I get feisty. I've been nicknamed in a couple of different ways. Bowden is the most recent, but in the past I've recognized that I've been called dragon a couple of times too. So in short, I was led to this understanding that, yeah, okay, so I got my answer, is my point. So I'm asking questions and I'm getting answers, and it has not been easy to ask some of the questions that I need answers to. I've really had to go back and start looking at, my relationship trauma of shit. And a big one is has to do with me being a bit of a cheater in high school. Like, not good. I'll spare you guys the details of that. It's just no good. But along with the lies that I released to my mom, like I talked about, a lot of that had to do with the person that really could have almost destroyed Bowden and I, but was also, like, our friend at the time. So this person really, like, put it all out there for me. What he ended up doing was calling Bowden early in our relationship and telling him all my dirty grossness. He, like, laid it all out for Bowden, and instead of Bowden running away from that grossness, he came back home, and we dealt with a bunch of stuff. And not all of it, but most of it. And so now coming back and looking back at that, like one of the most traumatic things that happened to me with these lies, this traumatic person, I went back, I saw a video by Aaron Doty about soul contracts. It's the first one that I ever clicked on of Aaron Doty, and now I watch his videos fairly regularly. But this soul contract video really helped me. I started looking at that and feeling like, I was really resolved with it. With this person, like I felt like I should have had more to like deal with about it, because it's so wrapped up in all the other crap that really still does affect me today. But when it comes to, I listened to that soul contract video, I really realized how definitive soul contract or experiences with people that you have. Like when someone comes into your life and they play a part and they play a role in your life, it's a very up and down experience, and I want to write about this a lot more on my blog that I do. My relationships and understanding of people is very, very in depth. I've spent a lot of time looking, watching, observing people in their relationships and with themselves and other people and just in general. So I know a lot about people and relationships and how this works. So when I finally was new information about the idea of reincarnation. And when you're up there, as this really high up, high dimensional spiritual being, like you understand the world and what in the cosmos and like what everything means. And I've always felt like, like fate is like there's like a fine line here of like things that are supposed to happen, but they could happen in different ways. Like that's where free will comes in. Like I kind of feel like the soul contract thing comes up to the point where you're just kind of up there as your full spirit self of all knowingness. And you know that you're going to go work out and play your role because you know what you're supposed to do. Like, you know who you are, you know what your skills are, you know what your soul is. So you play out your life. You're like, okay, well, this is what I can do for this situation. You go to your soul family, your soul buddies and go, hey man, like I really have some shit to deal with this time. I'm thinking we should go here and do this. And you kind of walk out your life and you make these kind of agreements. And I really believe this is true. You make these kind of agreements before you're even reborn, the things that will happen, but they're not decidedly so. I think this comes back into manifestation too, of just in that when you kind of know, or you see what you want before you want it, but you can't see how to get there. And that's because you already have decided where you're going to get to and who in what you're going to be in a higher knowing place. But it is up to you in this life to decide to do it or not. Like you can change it. So I started really realizing that the patterns, I started realizing the patterns of other people, which led me to realizing the patterns of myself. So I started to like overlap of the lessons here. Looking back on this one person I was referring to, I realized that it really was final. Like so the lesson here is I know what final feels like. I know that everything happened for a reason, and it's a love and a hate all mixed into one, just like it should be. There's a fine line between love and hate, but really they're really fucking similar. They're really the same. And when you get to that point in the karmic cycle of understanding that relationship in its entirety, a lot of times it becomes closed and it becomes final. It becomes understood. And so by going back to like one of the deepest, darkest things about me and coming to terms with it and forgiving it, like that was really huge. So I really started to challenge these other things that are hurting but unresolved. I called my best friend who left with that person. So this ex of mine who dumped out the bucket. At the time he dumped out the bucket, he was sleeping in with my best friend. And that, you can imagine, with that best friend, hurt a lot. But her and I didn't talk about it. She moved away with him. They moved. States. Several thousand miles away. This happened too. This is the thing. This is really current. Exes seem to go yonder. But they moved away and she went with them. She's still there. So one of the things I did in realizing at the death of one of my current relationships, one of my best friends was having trouble lying. So again, I was seeing all these lies come up in my current reality and I saw the lies within. It's just such a cycle, you guys. Such a fucking cycle. So anyways, I'm really trying to still work through some of those emotional traumas that happen. And trauma is hardly, it's people are going back who have been abused physically or sexually. These are really deep, things like rape and murder and betrayal, and like they're really, really deep, and it causes severe mental things. But I'm not disregarding the emotional, like, trauma that we all go through. And sometimes if that emotional trauma is bad enough, it does come into a physical place where those physical gnarly things happen, where violence and things happen. So, these are at least emotional things for me that I know that if these emotional traumas had continued, would have been very devastating, like super, super devastating. But there's still emotional trauma that needs to be like healed, and on so many levels. There's a lot going on here, and unfortunately, a lot of it is manifested into my current reality, into my current relationship, into the who I am currently. And that's my problem. Is that Bowden's kind of he's back and forth about this. This looking back, and because for me it's necessary. I can't just keep lying to myself. And unfortunately, I've been doing it for long enough now that I don't know what the truth is. And so when I've got someone like Bowden, who's a total Scorpio, who wants to dig in there, fucking get to the little Mr. Investigator, wants to like dig out the fucking shit out of the bucket again. Like, okay, but I don't know what the truth is. I don't know. There's things that I don't know. So I'm trying to find out, and it's taken a lot of research. It's taken a lot of reading and just of watching videos, of just playing the part of like reading the history book and reading the fantasy book and understanding that neither one of them are true until I practice it and I evolve with it and I like make it my own. And this is why I love astrology so much, is because I came at astrology for the first 2 years of study very hesitant, to say the least, like very outlandish to it. And now, and I've tried it in my life, and it continues to prove itself to me. It continues to be exactly right for me in that moment. So I return to it, and it continues to lead me. And there's things like that about history and about spiritual lessons. There's certain things. I should probably cut this short. I'm running out of space. So anyways, I'm going for it. I'm gonna figure out the answers one way or the other. And I am digging the process, although it's not easy. So anyone else that's waking up and doing this soul journey thing, my heart goes out to you. I love you. You're not alone. I feel you. I hear you. And it's gonna be all right. And we gotta take the low and make it high. Anything that we possibly can do to make karma come full cycle here, heal pain, release trapped emotions, and find truth, you should do. We should be doing. We need to get to the bottom of it. And if we can get to the bottom of it within ourselves, then we can bring it out into the physical world, which means that we can change the world that's coming. We have a fucking say. We have a choice, but we have to make it within to make it without. As above, so below. So below, as above. This is happening. Get on board. Start looking within yourself. And we're going to get this shit figured out. I love you, all of you, equally. None of you are better than the other. We all play a part. I love you.